Hello, in this video we're looking at issue 47 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine, adding some new paints to our collection, and learning about the rest of the battle sisters we got in the previous issue. Hello, I'm Mike and this is Will, we are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
In this video we're bringing you issue 47 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine, and this issue we've got two new layer paints, Pink Horror and Wild Rider Red. And if you'd like to skip to today's game, you can always do so using the time code in the description or the chapter bars, but we'll have a look through the issue first. First up, we have some battle records for the other sisters units we got last week. So we have the Sisters Repentia here. These are sisters who have failed their sisters or failed the faith in some way, and they've been stripped of their power armour, and they're usually goaded into battle by a Repentia Superior, taking up the two-handed chainsword and wildly charging the enemy in an attempt to either die or take out as many enemies as possible and earn redemption. So you can give all the four names and why they sinned against the sisterhood. And then the battle record for the Arco-flagellants, criminals and heretics, who rather than just being put to death, are given one last chance to redeem themselves by dying in battle. So they're fitted with stimulant pumps and have their limbs replaced with these electrified flails. And then background on the recruitment process the sisters go through. So they are usually orphaned children of Imperial officers and other servants who are taken at a young age and religiously indoctrinated and taught how to fight and so on. And it goes over the various units they might be put into. So we have the Battle Sister Squad is your standard line unit, Dominions, Elite Battle Sisters who use special weapons, and Retributors are similar but use heavy weapons. And then the Seraphim and the Zephyrim are the jump pack units. We've seen Seraphim before, and Zephyrim are usually armed with swords and pistols rather than dual pistols. And then here, background on the Talons of the Emperor, which is another name for the Custodes and various other Imperial agents. So the Custodian Guard are the guards of the Imperial Palace. Since the Horus Heresy, they've stuck to defending the Imperial Palace, seeing as there's a very small number of them, only 10,000. But after the opening of the Great Rift and the return of Repentia Gilliman, they have since started venturing forth to fight. So you can see that they are often supported by the Sisters of Silence, who are much more numerous, who are also distinct from the Sisters of Battle. And you can see a picture of a Custodian there, and where Space Marines are super soldiers, Custodians are effectively sort of super soldiers, even stronger, larger, faster, and so forth. And they have the absolute best equipment available. And there's a short story here about Custodians fighting against Gene Sealer cults. And then some background on the Lebanir Archipelago. This is a set of Eldari worlds which are under attack from the Tyranid Hive Fleet Ouroboros, and multiple craft worlds, Harlequin troops, and even members of the Ynnari, offshoot of the Eldari, have come together to fight against the invaders. And then the painting guide is adding some highlights with our new paint. So Pink Horror is for the highlights on Screamer Pink. So this is mostly purity seals and maybe some ropes here and there. And Wild Rider Red is a highlight for the Fiston Red. So you can see it there on the extreme edges of the Captain's Cape. Just going over the Space Marines in this issue. But that's it for the issue contents. I'll hand you over to Will so we can learn some new rules.
Before we get into our game, there's a couple more rules for the Adepta Sororitas. These are abilities that they have on their data sheets that are described here, so we know what they mean now. So first of all, we've got Shield of Faith, which does two things. It gives models a 6+ invulnerable save, but it also means that in your opponent's psychic phase, any model with this rule can attempt to deny psychic power as if it was a psyker, but rather than rolling 2d6 like you would normally, you only roll 1d6. If that roll is greater than the psychic test, or if it's an unmodified 6, then the power is denied. And then we have Zealot, which means that if the unit was charged, or performs heroic intervention, it can re-roll hit rolls in the subsequent combat phase. And as usual, there's a tutorial for those on the back, so those are very straightforward really. And then we have data sheets for our remaining Sisters units that we got with the previous issue. So first up, the Sisters Repentia. Normally they're 4 models, but we've only got the 1 at the moment. They have a weapon skill ballistic skill of 3+, strength and toughness 3 like other battle sisters, with 1 wound, 2 attacks and a leadership of 8. They have a 7+ save, which basically means they'll get a save if they benefit from cover, 6+, otherwise they don't have one. Each one is equipped with a Penitent Eviscerator, which is strength ×2, AP -3, 2 damage, but -1 to hit. Then they have Acts of Faith, Sacred Rites, Shield of Faith, and Zealot, all of which we know what they are apart from Acts of Faith. They ignore wounds inflicted on them on a roll of 5+, which we'll learn a bit more about on the next page, thanks to Solace in Anguish. And their Martyrdom rule means that if they're destroyed, then you gain a Miracle Dice, and we'll learn about those in future issue as well. And they are a core unit as well. And now the Arco-flagellants. Again, we've only got one model, although normally you'd have a squad of 3. They have a 7-inch move, 4+ weapon skill, no ballistic skill. Their strength and toughness 4, with 2 wounds and 2 attacks each. A leadership of 7 and again a 7+ save. Each one is equipped with Arco-flails, which are +1 strength, -1 AP, 1 damage, but you always make 2 attack rolls per attack. So effectively each one has 4 attacks with those, rather than 2. And you can also give one model in the squad Endurant implants, which gives it an attack characteristic of 3 and a base strength of 5. They have Zealot. Ecclesiarchy Battle Conclave is just to do with your army building, so we'll learn about that later. They also ignore wounds on 5+, and they can't perform any actions, basically because they're too insane. And they are also a core unit, although they do not have the Battle Sisters keywords, so they can't benefit from the Canoness's abilities or aura, because they're not Order of Our Martyred Lady. And again, another tutorial for 7+ saves. And here an explanation of ignoring wounds. These are the first units with the collection we've had with this kind of rule, but it is a common type of rule in Warhammer 40,000 for units to have. So when a unit with such a rule would lose a wound, you roll a dice on a 5+. It doesn't lose that wound, but it is important to note that even if you have a model with only 1 wound on its profile, if it suffers something with multiple damage, you do have to roll for all of the damage inflicted on it. So for example here, these Repentia are being hit with a 2 damage gun, so they have to pass both of the 5+ rolls, because even if they were past 1, it would still inflict a 2nd damage and they would still die, so they have to roll both successfully. But we'll see all that coming up in the game. And in the background for our game, the Canoness has made her way back to the surface of the hive of Alectia Prime, but the Necrons have overrun the whole area, so together with the survivors of her breaking out attempt, she's trying to get back to the Basilica of Saint Marcius, where Imperial forces are still holding out. But there are Necron patrols roaming around the ruins, and one in particular, led by the Royal Warden, has stumbled across the Canoness and is trying to prevent her forces from getting back to Imperial lines. So our mission, breach their lines. Again, it's an initiate mission, they just haven't changed the top there where it says scout missions. For our forces, we have all of the Sisters models that we have so far, and the Necrons again have some reduced size squads to make it fair, so we've got the Royal Warden, 3 Necron warriors, 2 flayed ones, and 1 tomb blade. The battlefield is our one map from issue 38 with the terrain on it, and deployment zones are 6-inch squares in the corners, as you can see on here. And there's an endgame objective, which says securing the cipher, but I think that's also a misprint, where the attacker, i.e. the Imperial forces, are victorious if they get at least 1 friendly model into the Necron deployment zone at the end of the game, otherwise the defender's victorious, and they've got 5 battle rounds to do so. So we'll set up the board and deploy the forces, and then get straight into the game. Here's a look at the battlefield, with the terrain in the usual places, and the models have been deployed. So looking at the Necron defenders first, we've got the warriors out front, Royal Warden in the middle, and then the tomb blade at the back, and the flayed ones have been deployed in their dimensional pocket to arrive with dimensional translocation later. And then the Battle Sisters deployment.
Yeah, I've got the 3 regular sisters in the front, the Arco-flagellant and the Repentia just behind, and then the Canoness bringing up the rear, and the 2 Seraphim are going to be in off-map for Sky Strike. I think I'm going to choose the Passion to be my Sacred Right, to get a bit more use out of the Repentia and the Canoness in the melee, hopefully.
So now we just need to roll off to see who gets the first turn. I have 1. And I think I'm going to make the Imperium go first, because I can't see any of them to shoot at the moment, and also to give me the last turn to try and evict them from my deployment zone if necessary, if it gets that far. So, let's go into Imperium turn 1. And once again, no command protocols for me, because I don't have a noble as my warlord.
Well, I don't think there's any need to rush yet, so all of my units are just going to tuck into that building, and they should all be out of line of sight.
But then obviously no shooting or anything, so straight on to Necron's turn 1. And I'm also starting off quite cautiously, so just the Necron warriors and the Royal Warden advancing into the ruin, but not getting right up close to the wall. Tomb blade will stay behind it for now, because there's no way it can see anything to shoot. And in the reinforcement step I did bring in the flayed ones just in the ruin, mainly because if the sisters move too far out they'll be pushed back with their 9-inch being far away, so having them here as a threat is probably a good use of them. But that's the end of Necron's turn 1. So on to Imperium turn 2.
So in the command phase I've put the Canoness's rod on the Repentia, because she might be charging off into the distance soon. And then everyone's moved out, so we can get some sight on the Necrons. So the Battle Sisters have moved out normally. 2 of them will be able to see something. The Canoness has gone out in front, and then the Arco-flagellant and the Repentia are moving as close as they can, so they can try and make as short a charge as possible. And I brought in the 2 Seraphim as well behind that pipe, so hopefully they might get a little bit of cover, and they are in range of something to shoot at. 2 Battle Sisters can see the flayed ones, which I'll shoot at first. 2 shots hitting on 3s rolling 1s. 1 hit. Wounds on 4. It didn't wound. And then the 2 Seraphim are going to shoot at the Necron warriors. 4 shots hitting on 3s rolling 1s. Rolling 1s. 2 hits. And wounding on 4s. 1 wound. No AP.
So they're in cover, so 3+ save. Oh, failed. Does that warrior reanimate? Rerolling ones because they're warriors. No, we'll lose this warrior to make the charge a bit longer.
In the charge phase, the Arco-flagellant will charge the warriors. Going to need a decent roll though. 5 isn't going to be enough. And the Repentia will charge as well. Fortunately, her crazy friend is in the way. Oh, a 10, that might be enough. Charging the warriors as well. So 10's not even enough to get in range, even if the Arco-flagellant wasn't there. So that'll be my turn.
And we'll be on to Necron's turn 2. And the Necrons are going to break cover to try and stall the Imperial advance. So the Tomb Blade has come out, so it's within rapid fire range of the Seraphim. The Royal Warden's going to stand on the edge of the ruins there, and the Flayed Ones have moved out to intercept some of the Imperial forces as they come in, hopefully. And the 2 warriors actually went up onto the upper floor of the ruin, so they can have a more commanding view. And we'll do some shooting, so we'll start with the Tomb Blade firing at the 2 Seraphim. The rear one will get cover, I think. 4 shots from the Twin Gauss Blaster, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, they will wound.
So 1 at a time, one at the back has cover, so 4+. She lives. 4+, lives, dies.
Next up we'll do the Royal Warden. He will shoot at the 3 Battle Sisters. 4 shots hitting on 3s, 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, 2 wounds.
Yeah, so I've got 1 in cover. 4+, nope. And then a 5+ from 1 out in the open. Nope. Let's take away these 2.
And the Necron warriors will shoot at the Repentia. 4 shots, hitting on 3s. Only 2 hits. Wounding on 3s. Got 1 wound.
6+ invulnerable save.
Okay.
No. 5+ to ignore damage. No.
And then we're on to the charge phase. The Flayed Ones will declare a charge on the Arco-flagellant. They'll need about a 5 probably. Oh, 4, I think that's a fail. Well, they're actually just within 5 inches, so 4 inches puts them there, which is within an inch of the Arco-flagellant, and conveniently outside of 3 of the Canoness, so she can't heroically intervene. But then, obviously, they will be picked to fight. 3 attacks each, hitting on 3s, 6s automatically wound. No 6s, but we've got 5 hits. Wounding on 4s, because an Arco-flagellant is toughness 4, so only 2 wounds. Doesn't have a save against this, but it does ignore damage on 5s.
Yeah, on 5s. He did ignore any and dies.
And they'll consolidate like this just to kind of get in the way of the Canoness. In the morale phase, normally the Battle Sisters would have to take a morale test, but the Canoness, being the Imperial Warlord, has the aura of +1 leadership, the Warlord trait that we get with this magazine, so they're okay. And then that'll be it for Necron's turn 2. So on to Imperium turn 3.
In my command phase, the Canoness will use her rod on the Seraphim, and then she can't get past the Flayed Ones without getting within an inch, so she's going to stop an inch away, and the Battle Sister's going to run behind the pipe for cover. And then the Seraphim's going to move her max 12 inches to get right in front of the Tomb Blade. I'll start shooting with the Seraphim. She's going to throw a crack grenade at the Tomb Blade. Hits on a 4 because it's got -1 to hit. Rerolling 1s though. It hits. Wounds on a 3. It doesn't wound. The lone Battle Sister there will fire her bolt gun at the 2 Flayed Ones. 2 shots on 3s, rerolling 1s. They both hit. Wounding on 4s. They both wound.
2 4+ saves. I'll make both.
Then the Canoness will fire her plasma pistol at the Flayed Ones, not supercharging. It's on a 2, not rerolling 1s. In the charge phase, the Canoness will charge the Flayed Ones. And 9's definitely enough. And then the Seraphim will charge the Tomb Blade. 5's going to be enough. I'll do the Canoness first. She has 4 attacks hitting on 2s, and 6s are an extra hit. 3 hits. Wounding on 4s. 3 wounds.
But that's enough to kill them, because they only have a 4+ save.
And then she'll consolidate towards the Royal Warden. Now the Seraphim has 2 attacks hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and 6s are an extra hit. Oh, she got a 6 and a hit, so 3 hits out of 2. Wounding on 5s though. Getting 1 wound.
3+ save. Made that. And then the Tomb Blade will hit back. I think it only has 1 attack, which hits on a 3. Just check. Wait, missed. That's the end of Adepta Sororitas turn 3, so on to Necron's turn 3. In the command phase, the Royal Warden used adaptive strategy on the Tomb Blade, because it is a core unit, allowing it to fall back and shoot. He himself was moved into the corner of the ruin, and the 2 Necron warriors have moved over so they can see both the Seraphim and the Canoness. And in the shooting phase, I'll do them first, shooting at the Seraphim. 4 shots hitting on 3s, 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, 3 wounds.
5+ invulnerable saves. No, didn't make any.
And then we'll do the Royal Warden shooting at the Canoness. 4 shots on 3s, 3 hits. Wounding on 3s, 3 wounds.
4+ invulnerable saves. She's down to 1 wound.
Let's do the Tomb Blade as well. 4 shots on 3s, 3 hits again. Wounding on 3s, 2 wounds.
4+. Yeah, she's gone.
That's the Canoness dead.
I'm just going to call it there because I don't think a lone Battle Sister probably can't actually make it to your deployment zone.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be a Necron victory. It's just one battle sister against all this is not going to work. So we will recap the game for you now. So that was the game for issue 47 of Warhammer 40,000 Imperium magazine. How do you think that one went?
Probably actually slightly worse than I would have expected, but I'm not too surprised at the outcome, because again, I've got a lot of 1-wound models. Well, Arco-flagellant's got 2 wounds, but he doesn't have a save, and it's not exactly hard to wound.
Yeah, and I think you said in the previous game that the rules just aren't designed to work at this scale with one model in a unit, because you can just easily kill it.
And I mean, your strategy worked out. And maybe it might have gone very slightly different if the Seraphim had blown up the Tomb Blade with a crack grenade, and the flayed ones basically did what they were meant to do, which is speed bump me, so...
You obviously had a more melee army, I had a more shooting army, but I rolled really well for my shooting, and so your melee didn't really come into the equation.
My melee units are extremely fragile, and there isn't really that much cover.
Yeah, unfortunately we didn't get to see either of them make any melee attacks, so we didn't know what they're capable of.
And that ignore damage is nice, but not really something you want to rely on.
And I don't think you made any of those rolls either in this game.
It's a very poor introduction to the sisters. It's almost as if they're designed to be used in larger units. I mean, you can't really give a fair assessment of Arco-flagellants or Repentia when you only have one. Like, Repentia can be an extremely dangerous melee unit with proper support. Fortunately, one on her own is not really that useful, and their ability to get faith dice is really handy. And we'll get a Repentia Superior, who's basically a support character solely for Repentia. She makes them so much better, and you'd probably make it a full squad of 9 with a Repentia Superior, and then put them in a transport so they can just jump out and charge whatever they want, and they probably will kill it. They'll do a lot of damage if you properly support them. And Arco-flagellants already are just meant to be expendable, both in the lore and on the tabletop.
It's actually quite scary that we'll be getting 3 of them eventually, because they have an awful lot of attacks.
And I guess Arco-flagellants and Repentia sort of have a very similar role to each other. I guess Arco-flagellants are slightly better against hordes of 1-wound things, because they get more attacks.
Whereas the Repentia can actually do some serious damage to something like Tomb Spider or something, once we have all of them. And again, they are great models. The Repentia obviously is like a sister, but she's got all the sisters' iconography and stuff, but is obviously an unarmoured human with a chainsaw instead. Yeah. Whereas the Arco-flagellant is proper sort of Warhammer 40,000 weirdness, basically a mutilated criminal.
And he does also show a bit of a darker side of the Imperium.
Adepta Sororitas and Ministorum Rangers as a whole, because although you have these sort of shining angelic type battle sisters, you also have some much darker things. They might be fighting for humanity, but you can't really say the Imperial forces are nice, or the good guys. And I suppose from a painting point of view, they're all skin and flaming bits rather than armour.
Quicker to paint than the battle sisters at the very least.
Well, I don't think there's anything really more to say about this we haven't already said or that wasn't obvious from the game, so let us know what you thought. If you've played this and you managed to get a better result with the Imperium, then let us know. We'd be interested to hear. As always, like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.